Before humans could speak a single word, you could already lie. Not with words. With a look, with a gesture, with silence held just a little too long. Somewhere in the deep past, before grammar, before vocabulary, before anyone had a word for truth, someone figured out how to bend it. And it worked. That should surprise you. Lying feels like a language problem. You think of it as a sentence built to mislead, a story constructed carefully, word by word. But the real answer is far stranger. Deception is older than talking. Older than us, in fact. It was already running through the minds of our ancestors, long before those minds could form a single syllable. Start with what a lie actually requires, not language. Something more basic. You need to know what's true. Then you need to understand that another mind doesn't know it. Then you need to act in a way that plants something false in that other mind, on purpose, for your own benefit. Psychologists call this theory of mind. The ability to model what someone else believes, separate from what you believe. It sounds abstract. It isn't. It's the machinery running every time you smile at someone you don't like, or go quiet about something you know they'd want to hear. And that machinery, researchers now believe, switched on long before language did. In the 1980s, two primatologists named Richard Byrne and Andrew Whiten started collecting reports from field researchers across Africa. Not experiments, just observations. Moments where wild primates seemed to be doing something too calculated to be instinct. A young baboon, caught alone about to raid a farmer's crop, would suddenly stand up and stare into the distance, as if something dangerous were approaching. There was nothing there. But the trick worked. The adults nearby would tense, scan the horizon, forget the baboon entirely. It had bought itself time, using nothing but body language and timing. Byrne and Whiten cataloged case after case like this. A subordinate chimpanzee spotting food, then deliberately not looking at it, not moving toward it, sometimes even walking in the opposite direction, only to circle back once the dominant male had lost interest. This wasn't clumsy behavior, it was strategy. They called it tactical deception, and they found it again and again across primate species, concentrated most heavily in the ones with the largest, most socially complex brains. Chimpanzees, baboons, us. Why would evolution build a brain for lying? Here's the twist, and it's the one that reframes everything. Deception didn't evolve because dishonesty is useful in general. It evolved because living in groups is expensive, cognitively speaking. When you live alongside dozens of individuals who all remember what you did yesterday, who all compete with you for food and status, and mates, the ability to manage what others believe about you becomes as valuable as any physical trait. Researcher Robin Dunbar built an entire theory around this, called the social brain hypothesis. He found that across primate species, the size of the neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, correlates not with tool use, not with hunting skill, but with the size of the social group an animal lives in. Bigger groups, bigger brains, more relationships to track, more reputations to manage, more opportunities to gain an edge by controlling what someone else believes. Deception in this light isn't a moral failure bolted onto an otherwise honest mind. It's one of the reasons the mind got so large in the first place. There's a name for this arms race. Nicholas Humphrey and later theorists called it the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. The idea that primate intelligence evolved primarily to navigate social manipulation, not physical survival. Outsmarting a rival wasn't about being faster or stronger. It was about knowing what they knew and using that knowledge against them, quietly, without ever raising a hand. And this didn't stay confined to primates. Vervet monkeys have distinct alarm calls for different predators, one for eagles, one for leopards, one for snakes, each triggering a different survival response. Researchers Dorothy Cheney and Robert Seyfarth spent years studying these calls in Kenya, and they documented something unsettling. Sometimes a monkey would sound the eagle alarm when no eagle was present, often at a moment that conveniently scattered a rival away from food. The call wasn't a mistake. It was a tool, a false signal, dressed up as a true one, deployed for personal gain. Even birds do it. Scrub jays, studied extensively by Nicola Clayton, will re-hide their food if they notice another jay watching them cache it the first time, but only if that particular jay has a history of stealing. They remember who watched, they remember who steals, and they act to deceive specifically the individuals most likely to exploit them. That's not instinct in the simple sense. That's modeling another mind and outmaneuvering it. So by the time early hominins walked upright, deception wasn't a new trick they invented. It was inherited machinery, already millions of years old, waiting for a bigger stage. Add growing brains, growing group sizes, growing social stakes, and you get a species under enormous pressure to get better and better at reading what others believe, and at shaping it. Here's where it gets stranger still. Some researchers argue that language itself may have evolved partly to serve this exact function. Not to describe the world more accurately, to manage reputation more efficiently. Once you can talk, you don't need to wait for someone to catch you in an act. You can talk about people who aren't even there. You can build a story about someone before they ever get the chance to build their own. Gossip, in this view, isn't a corruption of language. It might be one of the reasons language exists at all. Which means the lie didn't wait for words. Words arrived to make lying. And its opposite, reputation management, trust building, alliance forming, dramatically more powerful. The eagle alarm became a rumor. The false stare into the distance became an alibi. The same ancient circuitry, just handed a sharper tool. Think about what that means for you. Sitting here right now. Every time you soften bad news, every time you let someone believe something convenient without quite lying outright, every time you read a room and adjust your face before you've consciously decided to. You're not doing something uniquely human. You're running code that predates humanity itself, inherited from ancestors who never spoke a single word, but who absolutely knew how to make another mind believe something false. It shows up everywhere once you notice it. The customer service smile that isn't real, and both people know it, and both people accept the arrangement anyway. The strategic silence in a negotiation where what you don't say does more work than what you do. The carefully neutral expression during a meeting when you already know the decision has been made. None of this requires conscious calculation anymore. It's automatic, fluent, built in, because the brains capable of it were the ones that survived, generation after generation, in groups where managing belief was as important as finding food. There's something almost unsettling in that, not because it makes deception more forgivable, but because it reframes what honesty actually costs. Telling the truth, plainly and completely, isn't the default setting of a social animal. It's an effort, a choice made against millions of years of pressure pushing the other way. Every honest sentence you speak is, in a small sense, a decision to override some very old and very effective machinery. And maybe that's the real discovery hiding underneath all of this. Not that lying is ancient. That trust is the strange invention. The fragile, costly, uniquely powerful thing that had to be built on top of a mind already wired for manipulation. Trust doesn't come naturally to social animals with something to gain. It has to be constructed, protected, reinforced constantly, precisely because the tools for breaking it were there first. So the next time you catch yourself in a small, harmless untruth, a version of events shaded just slightly in your favor, you're not glimpsing something broken in you. You're glimpsing something ancient. A baboon staring at nothing. A monkey calling out a threat that isn't there. A mind, hundreds of thousands of years deep, still doing exactly what it was built to do. Before humans could speak a single word, you could already lie. Now you have every word imaginable. And the oldest instinct in your skull still decides, before any of them, which ones to use.